All right, everyone. Well, welcome to another episode of the Kung Fu Genius, and we have a special one today, kind of a throwback to old season one, doing interviews, talking. We're basically doing adult show and tell today.
Yeah.
Bruce Lee stuff. We got Charles Damiano, my good friend and renowned Bruce Lee collector, and Edgar Betancourt over here. Also, Bruce Lee. By the way, I Googled you, and Google AI said a renowned Bruce Lee collector.
Whoa.
It was very, very fancy. So we're gonna do like we did like we did back in season one. We're gonna do a little bit of a show and tell on collectibles. Now, while I am a huge Bruce Lee fan, I'm not like the collectibles guy. That's definitely your thing. I got a couple things, but everything I have here really doesn't hold any water to what you bring this time. And you brought stuff last time, and you're not even bringing the same stuff this time.
No, different stuff.
And it's mind-blowing. So, why don't we start with something easy to get started?
Yes, we'll do that. We'll do that. So thank you for that intro there, Alex. I appreciate it, and I'm glad to be back on the show, man.
Good to have you, man.
I just relaunched the one we did maybe, I think it was about 3 years ago, and
That's right.
there was some people who actually didn't see that episode, and they really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I let them know that we were about to do a part 2 of that episode.
Awesome.
So yeah, so I brought like, I don't know, about 20 items with me. We'll see if we can get through all of them.
Oh, we'll get through all of them.
Yeah, most of them, the way I collect is I like collecting a lot of the vintage memorabilia, and what I consider vintage is like a lot of the pre-death Bruce Lee memorabilia while he was still alive. And so I'm going to start with some of the really early stuff from when he made Green Hornet, because that's what started all for him.
Awesome.
And, you know, the Green Hornet came out with about 150 to 170 licensed items. And what that means is that they came out during the time he made those 26 episodes. And like all pop culture, you know, they were trying to capitalize on the popularity of Green Hornet, so they came out with a lot of cool items. I probably
so
own about
170 different type of like a lunchbox.
That kids used to play with when they were, you know, kids back in the 60s, and you know, color forms, Etch-a-Sketch, things that we don't even see today.
Oh, color forms. You
remember color forms?
Is it the one where you put the colors and you put them in the oven and then they would like bake?
No, that's a different thing.
What is that?
Color forms were a play vinyl of the character themselves you cut out, and then you would put them on a scene that they actually made.
Of the
it would
Green
be a
Hornet.
street scene, maybe the Black Beauty in the background or something.
Wow.
And
And
you'd
then
have
you
a
put
villain.
Bruce Lee.
You'd have Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
You can make Bruce Lee do a kick. You can do
No
so. It's
kidding.
almost like creating your own comic book scene.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
so stuff we don't really see anymore today. So I bought here today, I'm going to start with this this lunchbox, because this was very big in the 60s, right? And these were tin lunchboxes. This came out in 1966. Very collectible item. And what makes them more valuable is when you can actually find the thermos with it, right? Because as a kid, you used to put your sandwich in here. You used to bring your milk.
What are these kids putting in this thermos?
Exactly.
Soup. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Soup.
All right. Not coffee.
No.
Okay.
Maybe hot
Now
chocolate.
it's coffee.
And I remember I remember this too, even because I had lunch boxes growing up, but they were plastic. That the lid has the little bit for your fingers, so you can use it as a cup.
As a cup.
Yeah, this brings back memories.
Yeah, so this thing is probably valued $300-400 to find these now. This one is very collectible because obviously, you know, Bruce's popularity. So it has some great pictures on all sides. You have, you know, Kato here. You have Van Williams and Bruce Lee in the Black Beauty. So this is one of my showpieces in my collection. And what I'm trying to do now is when you come over my place next, I have glass cabinets, which you've seen, and I have one dedicated just to the Green Hornet. So I have about 40 licensed items. I probably brought about 5 or 6 of them here with me today, but we'll go through them. So this was the
You're
lunchbox.
40 deep in the 170.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And they're very expensive, these things, so they're really hard to find. So that's the lunchbox. The other cool thing is when you were a kid, big part of collecting were I don't know if you remember models, plastic models.
Yes.
And you know, they used to come out with Famous Monsters, Filmland, all the horror models, and I used to paint them as a kid. I was 6, 7 years old, and they actually, because of the popularity of the Green Hornet, they actually came out with
Black Beauty?
Black Beauty.
Yeah, the car.
So,
Green
you know,
Hornet.
you can hear the parts still in here, and this is the original box put out by Aurora.
I need that model.
From 1966, and used to glue it together and then paint it as a kid. So this is still in the box.
So this would be worth more because it has not been put together, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's still the
Is it
way it
unopened?
was.
Yes,
It would be
unopened.
worth even more if it had the original seal on it. So this was opened. So I just put this plastic bag just to preserve it. But again, another one that came out in 1966, and it's just a Aurora model of the Black Beauty. So
Wow.
really cool,
Black
cool
Beauty.
item.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then
Can I borrow that?
and then another fun thing that you used to do as kids. I don't know if you guys remember coloring books.
Yes.
Yeah.
With the crayons. Do you remember those? So coloring books, as a kid, I know I used to love to color.
Wow.
With my mom and my aunts, and you used to have the crayons, the Crayolas, and they put one out on the Green Hornet.
Wow.
And then again, 66, you got Van Williams, some really nice shots of Bruce and Van Williams from the Green Hornet.
Yeah.
And if you flip through it, this one actually has been colored in. This is an 01. I actually have two of them. I have one in my showcase, which is more towards more of a mint condition. This is kind of a good condition. It's more worn, but still worth probably $100, $150.
Did the kids stay inside the lines?
Remember that? Remember coming outside scribbling all over the place?
I hated that.
When we see that
Remember
one
that?
kid went like this, and they're like, yo, we can't even try it. What's going on?
And you always should say, "Oh, that was so great!
No.
Good job.
Good job!"
Put crayons on
And then what Edgar's holding up, these are
Dell.
from Dell. So Bruce Lee again was so popular, and comic collecting was really big in the 60s, 70s, right? That's when Spider-Man came out, the Hulk, and again to capitalize on
Love
his
the Hulk.
popularity. Remember the Hulk?
Yeah.
These are the only 3 comics that came out on Bruce Lee. So as a collector, you have to own these comics.
And you
They
got
put
all
out
3 of them.
all 3. So this is issue number 1, showing
Only
Bruce
3?
and Van Williams. That's it. 3 of them.
Only 3?
Issue
Yeah.
1, 2, and
Here.
3. You're holding issue
What?
number 2.
This is number 2.
That's
keep-
number 2.
Keep an eye on Dre, by the
And
way.
Dre has issue number 3. So they're numbered 1, 2, and 3.
I didn't have Wait, Mikey, you had issue number 3.
Yes.
What in the
So
world?
yeah, so these were really cool when they came out.
Now, were these stories, were these different stories than were in the TV show, like other adventures, or were they like basically recaps of episodes?
it's this one says Green Hornet and Kato combat a ruthless gang whose victims are forced to obey criminal commands.
So pretty much every episode.
It was probably following along the episode, which was the same thing in every episode,
It
right?
wasn't the triads, of course.
Exactly.
No. I don't think Mako was in this one.
No, I don't think he was in that one either.
That's right.
But they
the
always
Praying Mantis episode, right?
Yeah. And they always put some really nice photos on the back of the
that's
cover,
Yeah,
the front of the
that's
cover, and then if you flip it open, there's a beautiful color photo inside the cover and on the back cover as well. And then the rest is a comic book fashion. So these are a must-have for any serious collectors into Bruce Lee. You gotta find those 3. You have them, right? The Dell comics?
Yes, thanks to you.
Yeah, I had an extra set, and I got them for Edgar as well. So must have.
And then did you show those Pez dispensers?
No, we didn't. So I don't know if anyone remembers these as kids. Who
Yes.
remembers Pez?
Oh, I love Pez.
You love Pez.
Show me my age
Oh
here.
my god.
So
By the way, do they still make Pez?
Yes, they
Yes,
do.
they
do, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who's on Pez nowadays?
Sabrina Carpenter.
Carpenter.
man,
Did he? Like who's on?
Diddy Pez? Stop. There, stop right there. There cannot be a Diddy Pez.
It's not Diddy's face.
I've never seen a Diddy Pez.
Wow.
That would be hilarious.
You don't want to see it. You don't want to see it.
So you had mentioned one is original.
Yeah, so this is a licensed Pez. So they only came out with the Green Hornet. I don't really understand why, but again, it just shows you the trouble Bruce had breaking into Hollywood, right? So they kind of made one for the Green Hornet, but they never made a Kato Pez. So this is a repo. Somebody made this, for me, just from collector to collector, and he wanted to put one together of Kato. So I purchased this from John Agron, a good friend of mine and big collector out of North Carolina. He had an extra one, and he recently gave me this because it looks great as a set.
Yes.
But the Van Williams is a licensed one. This came out in '66, and you used to open these up. You put the little candies in here.
Right.
Remember that? And you flip the head
flip the
back,
head up.
and the little candy comes out of their
Yes,
neck.
yes,
and as a
yes,
kid,
yes.
you used to be. You got the pink and the blue and the green. So,
So
these
strange.
are these are really nice.
I like how Bruce Lee's head is bigger than Van.
Oh, yeah.
You notice that?
As it should be.
That's massive.
It was a feeble attempt, but
As it should be.
All right,
Yeah,
well,
so those are,
let me show something from my my very weak collection. I always feel like I'm showing up to a gunfight with like one of the nail file when I come to these things. Let me show you what I have. All right, what I have is not necessarily like vintage, original, valuable. These are some collector's things. So this is from the Bruce Lee Club in Hong Kong, which recently, unfortunately, had to close their doors. That shop that they had to close it. It still exists, but they don't kind of have a place right now. So I'm not sure what W is doing with all that stuff. And what they did is this is SFX. This was Bruce Lee's second high school, St. Francis Xavier, because he got kicked out of LaSalle for pulling a knife on the PE teacher, by the way. Got kicked out of LaSalle, had to go to SFX, St. Francis Xavier, and then eventually, and maybe famously, had his one boxing match with Gary Elms, who was like the high school champion or whatever. He was from KGV, King George the Fifth, which was another competing private high school. So he was from KGV, and Bruce was from SFX. And then so they had a boxing match, and it was kind of Bruce's first real big boxing match. Gary was already like the champion. And he beat Gary Elms, of course. Wow! Because he's Bruce Lee. So when you open this up, they have some really cool things. They've a couple postcards in there. One is this one, which is supposedly a photo of Bruce in a boxing match, wearing that T-shirt there with SFX on it. There are some people who actually dispute whether that was actually Bruce Lee in that photo, but
it does look like him.
It does look like him, and everyone kind of has the same face when they're in the middle of a boxing match. And then this was years later when Bruce would become a big movie star, and then he went back to his alma mater of SFX with the infamous Bob Baker, and this was the Catholic priest who taught Bruce how to box at that time when he was going to St. Francis Xavier, which is obviously a Catholic high school.
I love how a priest taught him how to box.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. And there's Bruce with his shirt off, showing off, and that's the priest who taught him how to box. What's also cool about this set here is that in addition to the reprint of the T-shirt that he wore, they also gave reprints of the notebooks that were used at St. Francis Xavier, including with Bruce Lee's name written on there, and it's like a blank notebook, just like the one that
they used in school.
The one that they would have been issued. Here's another one, says St. Francis Xavier, Shanghai. Clearly, SFX probably started in Shanghai, and then they opened other branches, including Hong Kong. And then here is the reprint
of the T-shirt, the tank top, right?
The tank top, which you can actually better see inside the box.
That's how it looks.
Wow, that's how it looked there. So this is pretty cool. I still haven't opened it,
and that's what he used in the ring, right? He wore that in the ring.
That's what he would have worn, because that was basically the school uniform.
Yes.
And
what a great collectible.
This was a great gift from one of my Hong Kong students, Ming Leung Man Lei. He's a student of mine who trained with me in New York, and then unfortunately had to move back to Hong Kong. But the cool thing about Ming is, whenever he sees something like this, he kind of knows his Sifu's a bit of a Bruce Lee head.
Well, that's a great collectible, Alex.
So I'll get kind of that stuff.
Do you have that one? Well. I don't have that one.
Never even knew it was
I know, that's a nice one. That is a nice one.
I mean, if it's exclusive to the museum.
They'll do like a limited run of those.
Yeah, only 7 of these were made.
I don't know about that.
I know that.
And I have 6.
I'm sure he knows that for a fact. 7, andAlex has 1 of the 7.
Right.
This one here was actually sent to me by one of our podcast fans.
That's nice.
I believe, and I apologize, I believe it might have been Byron who sent
Byron hooked me up too.
Yes. Who sent this to me, right?
Byron's
now this is the soundtrack.
This is hardly fair. There's only one person in here that actually has turntables.
Yeah.
Me. Yes.
So where's my? The 2 of us. Where's my copy?
In defense, Byron years ago stole my box set of Enter the Dragon somehow and re-gifted it back.
Oh, really?
Oh, there you go.
Wait, so you still got it back, and yet somehow I still don't have this vinyl.
So this one
make sense.
Maybe
the soundtrack.
will re-gift that to you.
The soundtrack from Enter the Dragon. This is the original vinyl. If you look down here, it's 1973, which was the year Enter the Dragon came out. And yes, with Lalo Schifrin's iconic, the late Lalo Schifrin's iconic soundtrack on there.
Yeah, that's Incredible collectible.
I have
that's vintage.
Yeah.
I have a cousin. Yeah, so that's like a vintage.
That's
thing
your one vintage item.
One vintage item, right? Well, just wait until you see the other vintage
There you
item
go.
I have. All right.
So that must have come out when the movie came out.
Yes.
Yes.
So that makes it vintage.
Right.
Yes, but it doesn't make it pre-death because Bruce Lee
Okay, that's what I
died
was
before
wondering.
Enter the Dragon.
Yeah,
came
and
out.
I heard that he saw the film, made, but it didn't have the music at the time.
That's right. It didn't have the
So
soundtrack.
he didn't hear it with the sound, and he
Yeah.
still approved of it without that
Yes.
incredible soundtrack.
So think about it, like when you think Enter the Dragon, like the soundtrack comes in my ear when I'm thinking about the movie.
Right.
When you think about the opening scene, when you think about the soundtrack is so perfect.
Oh my God.
And Bruce Lee never heard it that way. So we've all experienced Enter the Dragon in a way that the main star never had
heard
a
it.
chance to experience it, unfortunately.
And he was a fan of Lalo.
Yes,
Yeah, I
big
believe
fan of
Mission
Lalo.
Impossible.
Mission Impossible.
Impossible.
Yeah, a bunch of other stuff. I have a cousin who's a bit of a baller. He
Your cousin is OD.
he lives the life I
He's
wish I
OD.
lived, right?
OD
And,
with it.
he was a Bruce Lee fan in the 70s,
Uh-huh.
and he knows lots of celebs. And he once showed me a video where he was, I believe, at Lalo Schifrin's home. And Lalo Schifrin was on the piano playing the Enter the Dragon theme song for my
man.
cousin who's a Bruce Lee
How
fan.
historic is
Lalo
that?
himself
And
playing.
you don't have a copy of the.
No,
of
he
the,
showed it to
he
me, all
showed
right?
it to
Because
me.
otherwise he knows. I'd be like, yo, can I repost this?
Right,
and
right,
you know,
right.
it was like a private video.
No,
yeah.
no.
So that was really cool. Also, like,
There's only one of those that exists.
yes, and so my cousin's a big boxing fan. Has lots of like vintage like boxing trunks from famous matches. Roberto Duran, Muhammad Ali training trunks. Whatever.
Nice.
And while he's there, he's showing my his boxing room, and he goes, "Oh, I have something you might be interested in." Then he grabs this random box, pulls out, there's a check written from Bruce Lee to a bookstore for like $70, $80 for a bunch of books, signed by Bruce Lee. He's like, yeah, oh, I picked this one up at an auction. And
Wow.
just like, it's like one of his side things, right? It's like, oh man, you are
Jesus.
living the life I wish I had. So, so what else you got? What
Yeah, so
else?
We got to get your cousin.
Sticking
on the
with
show,
pre-death, I'm gonna show you some of these 4Cs Weekly. These are some of my favorite magazines. So these are more newspaper type magazines.
Yes. Kind of like almost like tabloid, right?
Yeah, so these came out of Hong Kong, when Bruce was still alive, and this is one with Nora Mao.
Liu Hosel, yeah.
Right, and it actually has the date up here. So what's that say? January
January something 1970. I can read it. The English one is straight up, but I can actually
1972.
I can read it in Chinese. Yeah, 1972 January 7th.
He was still alive. He was
January 17th.
probably just made Fist of Fury, right?
Yes.
With Nora Mao, and so this is pre-death, considered pre-death. These are. This was coming out weekly. That's why it's called 4Cs Weekly. So
Yes.
they put out dozens of these a year. Every week there was a different one, and
Right.
Bruce was featured like on about 25 of them.
Wow.
I think I have about 9 that he was featured on. So
Incredible.
the whole, I would love to have all 25 with him featured because they're just beautiful covers, as you can see here. So this is one of the issues pre-death, and that's just really nice
it's really
one.
interesting. It shows you how much of an eye I don't have for collecting, because I was once in Hong Kong on an area near a very famous temple, and they sell antiques nearby. And there was a guy selling a bunch of antiques, and he had these 4Cs magazines.
Oh, did he?
There.
4Cs
And I
Weekly?
remember seeing that one, and I remember seeing a few other ones. I went, oh, that's cool. But I didn't realize, like, oh, those are... Because I remember very specifically seeing
No,
them.
Alex, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
these I've seen people purchase these for $600-700 each.
Wow.
Depending on the condition. So when I went to a friend of mine in Miami, Seafood Rudy Lambs, who's been collecting Bruce Lee stuff for about 50 years, he was trying to sell off his collection because he downsized, and I bought these from him. That's the only reason I got these, and I got them at a pretty good price. But this one came out in March of '72. Again, Fist of Fury cover, right?
Yeah.
Who's that on the cover there?
I know, this is actually
You're
the front of the
striking.
cover. Bruce made the back cover of that one.
Yeah.
She is something.
Yeah, there you go.
He's always going to be looking at the girls.
No, but the crazy part is her eyes are the same color as the room.
Yes.
There you go, yeah.
That's, She must be on some shit.
It was the 70s, actually.
God.
And then you got this one with Bruce and Nora Mao
In Italy.
in Italy from Way the Dragon, another pre-death one, sometime in late '72 this one came out. And as I flipped through this one last night, I think I was telling you, they refer to the film as Enter the Dragon.
Yes, because the original title.
That was going to be the original title, right?
Yes.
So it's funny seeing all the Way of the Dragon shots of Bruce in there with Chuck Norris, and he's calling it Enter the Dragon.
Yes.
Now, did you know why he was going to call it Enter the Dragon at the time? Was there a story behind that?
No, I mean, that I don't know. I mean, it makes sense, like, even in the case of Way of the Dragon, it's like, they have a problem in Italy,
Yeah.
and they have to bring the dragon from overseas. Enter the dragon
Right.
into the scene, right? It makes, I think, a little more sense than it does in the actual movie, Enter the Dragon, right?
Yeah.
They changed it. He saved it later for another film, and then used it, and then called it Way of the Dragon.
Yeah, when he made Enter the Dragon, though, he was adamant on using that name, right?
Yes,
Enter
yes,
the Dragon, because they were going to call it Blood and Steel,
Yes.
or, The Deadly
Hans Island
Three,
or whatever.
Hans Island. And, I heard the reason he wanted to Enter the Dragon at that point is because it was the first time that the American audience was going to...
Yeah, it would be like his foray
into Hollywood, right?
That
Here
makes
comes
sense.
Bruce Lee, here enters the dragon. So he wasn't going to make the film if they didn't use that name. I mean, he had to fight for that name. And
Yes, I remember the letters and the Chinese title "Long Zhang Fu Dao," which is quite the Chinese title is literally a tiger and dragon fight. Bruce being the dragon, Han being the tiger.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. So it doesn't have that. The same thing like with Way of the Dragon, the Chinese title Man Long Guo Gong, which is the fierce dragon crosses the sea. Fist of Fury is Jing Mong Moon, which is just the name of the school. And Big Boss is Tong San Dai Heng, which is the big brother from China.
Yeah.
So the Chinese titles often had almost nothing to do with the English or the overseas titles.
You know what I find so fascinating about Bruce? He's taken millions of photos, right? And all his photos, he's never wearing the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, he was extremely
That's a good
stylish.
point.
Yes. Extremely stylish and photogenic. And for
whoever's
that
taking
time,
these photos,
he had like the same number of photos as people have nowadays because
Exactly.
we have phones. Like,
right.
It's like...
the fact that like nerds like us who've seen so many Bruce Lee photos, like every now and again stuff comes out that I still haven't seen.
Me
and I'm
too.
like, what?
How does
that happen in 1972 when you didn't have a camera phone?
Way ahead of his time.
Yeah, I heard that he had a personal photographer who used to follow him, and he used to give them instructions on to continually take pictures, and he used to edit out. He only wanted the best shots, I read. And that's why he looks great in almost every shot you see where he's on a magazine cover. It's always
famous TWA
photo shoot.
Where he was wearing his belt buckle knife.
Did you see it in there?
No,
he's covering it. Yeah.
They're covering it, but that was kind of, I think, the first time that that was seen publicly.
Yes.
He was wearing. It was after or during the shooting of Way of the Dragon. You could tell by the hair.
Yeah.
And he was starting to get a little bit paranoid for his safety. Actually, you can see
a little piece of the top of the belt
That's the
buckle.
part where you pull it
Where he
out.
pulls it. Look at the top of the belt
You can see
buckle
the top.
there.
That's where you pull the little.
And it had a
blade
little
out.
knife in there, right?
It was actually like for puncturing. It wasn't like a blade. It was like for stabbing into someone.
He was paranoid at that time when he was becoming popular. Right?
Yes.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
And then the last four
Blazing
seasons.
Saddles reference there.
You can tell we're from a different time period because we have Blazing Saddles references and everyone here understands it.
Exactly. And then the last Four Seas Weekly is a great shot of him from Way of the Dragon
Yes.
with the nunchucks. Again, another pre-death. So these are just some of my favorite, and I just like the vintage feel to them. They
Absolutely.
just look during that time frame. They look like 70s and the
like
early
this one.
70s. Isn't that a nice one?
Yeah, I like this one.
That's a great one.
His eyes are pretty striking on this one.
Yeah, another great shot.
I think I'm in love.
So before you show the next one,
Yeah.
let me show my vintage thing, which I can't really show on YouTube or we'll get demonetized.
There we go.
This is a Playboy magazine.
Oh.
All right. And this is September 1972. Now, one might ask, why do I have a Playboy magazine from 1972? To which the answer, as always, is the articles. It's the articles. Why else?
Why else?
But by the way, just look at how thick a Playboy magazine was in 1972.
That's a lot of articles.
Yeah, that's a lot of articles.
A
lot of
reading.
quality material reading in here, right?
Oh, God,
and
yes.
so the reason why I have this is because there was a story told by Bob Wall, which already, when there's a story story told by the late Bob Wall. Always got to double, triple, quadruple check it. All right,
That's what you always say.
Bob Wall famously sold his karate gi from Enter the Dragon at least 5 or 6 times.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, shout out to the late Bob Wall, but he always had to check everything he said a little bit. But one of the kind of offhanded stories is usually whenever he has no skin in the game, you can probably believe the story. But when it's something where it's like about him, you have to be a little careful. So he told a story that he was over at Bruce Lee's house, the one at 41 Cumberland Road,
Oh yeah.
and Bruce was talking about, let's just say, substances and how they can be performance enhancing, which, all fairness to Bruce Lee, when you read the Bob Baker letters, it was very clear that pretty much what he was using in the project of enhancing performance, the ability to write more, think more, be creative, do more stuff, stay awake, you know.
Everyone that does a lot of coke says that when they don't want to admit that they actually really enjoy it.
So he kind of propped up. According to Bob Wall, he said, "Hey, there's this this article in Playboy magazine goes into it very in depth, and it was this issue, and in it actually has a centerfold on drugs. All right, so like you could pull it out, and it has a chart which says all the different types of drugs and what kind of things you could get from it, and." When you read it, because they really didn't know publicly how dangerous certain white substances were until the mid to late 70s.
Yeah, when did this come out again?
This is September 1972, which meant they probably came out in July or August.
Okay.
Okay? Because they always came out a couple months in advance, right? So when you open it up and you read it, it's very clear why Bruce Lee would have had a more favorable opinion of a certain white substance as being performance enhancing, because this doesn't really talk about the dark side of it. It talks about like it puts it right next to caffeine and nicotine.
I was going to say sugar, isn't it?
So
sugar. Yeah.
So anyway, I decided I would get it for the articles, and because I wanted to read what did Bruce Lee read at that time to kind of inform me as to what was in his head, and it makes sense why he would think that was a perfectly normal.
And Bob Wall said that he saw that at his house at 41 Cumberland.
Yes, he said in one of his interviews that Bruce pulled out a Playboy magazine which had a major article about it, which even pulled out and had a chart of all the different drugs.
And that's it? Yeah, you
and then I looked at it and it was that, and I found the exact one.
When was that interview or with the Bob Wall thing?
Well, the thing is, I don't remember where I heard it, but I remember when I heard it, I put it in my note app, like, I gotta find that Playboy magazine. Yeah. And I looked online, and that you can get PDFs of these things, and I looked, because it had to be from that time period, and I scanned it until I found this one, and then I bought it on eBay.
You know, someone stole my Kim Kardashian. I need to get that back somehow.
Which had a great article on briefcases, which is why you got it, right?
Exactly.
Why else does anyone get Playboy but for the articles?
Someone literally
That's why I got
stole
Hustler.
All right, there you go. All right, so now you have some magazines.
Yeah, a couple of Chinese magazines, and then I'm going to show you some autographs on Bruce Lee, which I think you'll find really interesting. Stay tuned for part 2 for more Bruce Lee vintage collectibles with Sifu Alex Richter, aka the Kung Fu Genius, along with his sidekick Dre and my Bruce Lee brother Edgar Betancourt, where I will be sharing my rare Bruce Lee Chinese magazines, original Bruce Lee autographs and Jun Fan Gung Fu Institute receipts, rare Bruce Lee Golden Movie News magazines, and much, much more coming soon.